Recording in progress.
All set. Call this workshop to order for the Buckfield Selectmen to discuss the budget at 5:32.
Would you like me to begin?
Yes.
As I recall, last year, about the only directive that is given to the town manager was flat budget.
Yeah,
For which he did.
and then some, yeah.
So last year was the first budget compiled and budget process all the way through by this administration. The feedback I've gotten has been very positive. Cameron, I think you did a fantastic job. I think going into this budget season, it might be helpful for Cameron for us to talk about some of the thoughts or concerns of the community or the messages that we've gotten from the community about the budget, and to maybe give a little bit more directive to Cameron on some thoughts I have.
Yes.
Throw it out there.
All right.
Of course, the workshop, we just talked about it. Yeah. That there is equipment in town, in different departments that will need to be replaced or overhauled or replaced in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And it's great that we can hold on to or keep in service equipment as long as is feasible. But to go in with that hope and a prayer that nothing's going to go down this year, invariably something will. Nothing is going to get less expensive in this world. And so if there's a bunch of equipment that is going to need to be replaced over the next 3 years, that there should be some discussion with the budget committee, with the select board, to maybe look at which items should go on this budget, and not try to save everything for a long time. Yeah. I would like to see salaries, wages in town, make sure that they are aligned with comparable to, or aligned with, what's the words that I want to use, for a small rural town, this area, Maine. I believe that the only thing more expensive than payroll is, or more expensive than the salaries, is losing a good employee. Because the compensation wasn't adequate, because in the long run, we'll end up
Have to go through the same process we just went through last year.
Yeah.
or with any department. I've been spending a lot of time looking at wages, looking at salaries, and there are places where we're pretty much on target, would you say? And there are some other places where somebody could skip over a town or two and make significantly more money or have a significantly bigger benefit package. So maybe we need to look at getting those wages more in line.
Or go to a larger town with just one role for more money. You know what I mean? So instead of having multiple roles, you have one, less stress. It can be a challenge to juggle the fact that we're a small rural community and we do more with less, then we exit this from.
Yes, yes, it is. So I think that's important, and then we, we can't keep going with a flat budget forever, and perhaps maybe not this time. The cost of living increase is 3.2%. Um, I feel that if this budget, if the cost to the taxpayer, so after accounting for income coming in, not only the expenses going out, if we see an increase of not more than 3%, I would feel good about presenting that
Yep.
to the community. So those are some of my thoughts. What do you all think? What are things that are important? What are things that we should focus on, or?
Yeah, it's hard to say there's one thing, right? Because equipment's certainly a big problem. It's so expensive. But personnel, keeping them is definitely your most valuable asset.
Yes.
And if we're not keeping up with the market uh, for our area, then, and not just our area, we unfortunately compete with, nearby larger areas. They could drive a little bit further, quite a bit more. So you have to make the job.
Right, there's a balance.
Right.
You go to a larger town and your job might be a little more stressful, depending on the area, right? Like say rescue. Rescue for one area is gonna be way more than Buckfield, right? So.
But whether you're plowing in Buckfield or plowing in,
The middle of Auburn.
it's a plow driver plowing.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that last year's drop, we were one of the very few towns that had our taxes go down. Other towns were anywhere from 5 to 10%. Google says inflation's at 3.4. I think it's a lot higher than that, but
Yeah.
I guarantee you the RSU will not come in any less than 5% probably this year. They were really close to being, well, I mean, we were higher than 3% last year, and I anticipate same thing will happen until that school's done. I mean, they already have a hard time filling vacancies. I know custodial staff is short, so, and I think contract negotiations are up at some point here soon, so. My guess is that, which is 40% of our budget, is already gonna have a built-in increase that we have no control over.
And that's the piece that we don't have control over that. So the part that we do have control over.
Our goal shouldn't be more than 3.5.
Is that within the scope of possibility as you begin this?
To give you an idea in a couple of days when I finish putting everything in the computer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because I have to factor in revenues and the new revenue projections to give myself a good idea. Because I can take what our municipal budget was and figure out what 3% is and tell you no. But if our revenues are up, it's a different figure. So.
Exactly.
And I know our interest revenues are going to be higher. I'm almost positive our municipal revenue sharing is going to be higher because we've under projected that 2 years in a row. My one concern is revenue brought in by rescue, because we're not. I don't know where we're going to be with transfers in the next 6 months. So that's all, you gain some here, you lose some there, and it's like, well, where are we gonna be?
Yeah. As the person who's done the most research into it, would you mind elaborating on what roles we've kind of fallen behind in pay wise? Which roles you think we should consider a pay increase for?
Well, I would expect Cameron to talk with his folks and come up with a proposal, but Public Works, Director of Public Works,
Mhm.
um. I think there needs to be a discussion about with fire and rescue.
Mhm.
I've heard the words volunteer fire department. And I honestly believe that the folks in the fire department, that they're not driven by the paycheck.
Mhm.
So many of these people would show up and do their job, whether they're paid or not. I find it an embarrassment that we pay these folks who are willing to charge into a burning building to save somebody's life. We pay them minimum wage.
Mhm.
And whether they do it for the money or not, it just makes me really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
If somebody were to ask, oh, what do you pay your minimum wage? What?
Mhm.
I'm not comfortable with that.
No, that doesn't make sense to me either.
And that's also not within the market for the county, essentially. I mean, that's just not.
Mhm.
So one of the pieces, and I don't know if you have this information handy or not, in no way, shape, or form, I'm saying this publicly for anybody who's listening, in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting that we not have our own fire department.
Mhm. Yeah.
Having said that, if a town did not have a fire department, what would that town have to pay?
Well, we'd have to find a neighboring. We would have to have a contract with somebody. The problem is without a contract, other towns would essentially bill us by truck, by man, for however many hours they are. And the cost of that is dramatic. I think an engine that I looked at the sheet that we would do for a illegal burn is like $200 an hour for an engine.
Mhm.
You know, it's $25. We actually bill more we bill more per man than we actually and we pay our employees less than half of what we bill. Somebody who.
So you gave me the
Got
information.
it.
So this is what we would bill,
Mhm.
right?
Well, yeah,
So for a firefighter, we would bill $25 an hour. For the incident commander, we would bill $30 an hour.
Mhm.
And then for the fire engine, $200 an hour, fire tanker, $150 an hour.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we could afford these figures. I think we could not,
Mhm.
right now. But I would suggest we work on getting to that place.
Mhm.
Um,
and I've spoken with the fire chief too. When I first came here, one of the things that I don't want to say I took issue with, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around is not coming up with a staggered pay scale based off of skill level.
Mhm. Yes.
Because the training that's required for fires, I mean, it's not as bloody and gory as rescue, but it's just as in depth and it's just as time consuming.
Yeah.
And people should be paid for advancing their skill set, just like you would if you became an EMT from a driver or became an advanced from an EMT. There should be some sort of, they're offering us a service because of the time they put in, and they should be compensated accordingly. So I've been dropping that into his ear for a year and a half now, and I kind of came up with my structure that I'm gonna propose once I'm finished with it. But and then you got to think the other thing too. You got fire and rescue under one building. They all work side by side,
Mhm.
and I think some of, and again, they don't all, a lot of the old time firefighters don't do it for the money, they do it, everybody. I remember when it was all volunteer, but at the same time, you look at the time and energy they put into, years of training and they're making minimum wage, while this person put in, what is an EMT, was it 3 months?
Yeah, roughly.
Put in 3 months and they're making $2.50 more an hour.
Mm.
So we have to be realistic. And I mean, hour wise, I mean, it's not like, other than the daytime coverage we have during the week to ensure that somebody will be there to respond and get everything set up while the volunteers are either who are retired or working can get there, or in other towns can come in. It's not like we're paying these rates 24/7. It's just when we need them.
Yep.
So that's needed to be worked on for at least the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And how many new firefighters have joined the force in, let's say, the last 5 years?
I don't know about the 3 years prior, but you're not beating down the door in the last 2 years I've been here.
So that's,
Um,
at some point, folks will retire or
but they just can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
or can't do what they are able to do right now. And it would be great to build a bigger force. And
I mean, you gotta think, we have 3 chiefs in that building on fire. We have 2 former chiefs and then we have Adam at this point, those 2 chiefs are no longer chiefs because they got tired and, they do what they can, but it's as they get older and it's harder to do the things that us younger kids can do. I'm just saying.
yeah, you kid.
Hey, I can still do some things. I don't agree with you. So yeah, I mean, as far as attracting people to come in to do that locally, I think the internship that Fire and Rescue is doing with the high school is good because it's introducing these kids earlier on. And I hope they stay with it. I hope the program continues because I think it's a good opportunity. A lot of the rescue personnel that we have, who also have firefighter background, come from other towns who got started young and they've been doing it longer than some of the adults who have been, so I think starting people off early is good. Opening the doors and letting them see what it is instead of it being,
Mm.
just a lockdown building is good. Um, so we're trying to get creative in that aspect of trying to introduce it to new people. But I mean, realistically, the future is these younger kids and these younger kids.
What are you gonna give me?
And if you're looking at any kind of call system, you're looking at local folks.
Where?
Yeah, I mean, for 911 calls, I mean, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from home. If they live in Oxford, they're 25 minutes out. So, and it's not just that. I mean, you got to look at the economy too. I mean, these kids they're graduating high school, and if they decide they're not going to college, their goal is to get a job. Well, in order to get their own place, they can't afford it. And I'm not saying we can afford to pay them to do that, but when they do work, every little helps because this is usually a second job or a third job for them, or a third thing they do.
Right, indoor.
They do it for
Hey,
the
if
right
you,
reason.
if you spend the time getting the training, then you have this opportunity. But
You know,
some of these younger folks to say, hey, spend all this time getting trained and then we'll pay you minimum wage when this happens.
most of your career firefighters started as volunteers for the smaller services like ours. Yeah, that's where they get their experience.
Okay. For me, in so many ways, it's just almost the statement.
Yeah.
Of it right now, or a reflection of, and so with that, I've been asking a lot of questions. People have been very patient with me. Stacy next door has giving me so much time as I've tried to better understand. And when it comes to fire and rescue, and I think people think about rescue more often with this, is response time. And that's what's most important to the folks who need rescue. And when I make that phone call, I want somebody here as soon as possible. Being in a rural area, it may be longer than somebody who's living in an urban area, and that's just par for the course. But if you have somebody who's on call, who lives 10 minutes away, and it's tonight, and they get the tone, they get the call. Realistically, they've got to get out of bed, get dressed, maybe use the bathroom, go out and shovel the car a little bit and drive down here, and you're looking at 50, or even if it's not in a snowstorm, get up, get dressed, grab some water, go out, warm the car for a minute, whatever it is. And so 12 to 15 minutes to get here. And then turn around and maybe it's 12 minutes away. So now we're at almost a half an hour. Somebody potentially coming from Oxford could actually get there more quickly. I think that we really should look at having our service staffed 24 hours a day.
Currently, we're currently staffed Friday from 6 a.m. until, and this is the way it used to be, until Tuesday at 6 a.m. 24/7, and then Tuesday day, Wednesday day, Thursday day, and then back to that schedule. As I was looking at this, what I was trying to look at was the biggest, the key thing that we need, no matter what, is a provider, whether that's a basic or a paramedic, or, I mean, Bob puts in quite a bit of time for us, and thank God he does. Because it saves the town a lot of money on the ALS side of things too. But at a minimum, we need at least, because we've got a lot of drivers. We can utilize fire for drivers. We can utilize just about anybody. Well, in an emergency situation, we could utilize fire. Now they made us licensed drivers, which is really stupid. But but if we can find a provider or have a provider on shift 24/7, that would make a big difference. Because a lot of our providers don't live in Buckfield, so they can't take on-call shifts. And we struggle to fill those shifts on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And it's just the nature of the beast. I don't have EMTs and paramedics in Buckfield that work for us that can fill those shifts. So.
And someone is not going to take, would be far less likely to take an on-call shift where they have to stay at the station for how much money?
$4 an hour.
$4 an hour. Wouldn't do it.
Until we get a call.
Do it. And then there's that piece that the person who lives out in North Buckfield, I don't know if anybody does, but just the provider out in North Buckfield that we're paying $4 an hour to be on call, and they're at their house. That's a long response time. And is that what the community wants? We have to pay for the services that we want to have. So this is what we need to ask ourselves, ask the town, see what their feelings are. And again, we don't always have providers. And if we don't have a provider, then someone else comes in and fills that void. And at some point, potentially we could get billed for that. And if we start getting billed for that, I think it would be more expensive
Some services currently bill, other services don't, but I anticipate that other services probably will in the near future. So, I mean,
And they're from further away, so again, it's the response time, if it's.
well, typically the EMTs can get everything started and get headed in the direction of wherever the paramedics are gonna be, depending on the situation. But it's not ideal. And, you're gonna have the people that are gonna argue that, well, I don't agree with this, we'll just rely on the paces or the turners or at some point, mutual aid doesn't become mutual. And that's when a price gets put on it, and that's a price that I don't think people anticipate the actual cost of what additional cost that could bring. You think, depending on how it goes, one service could bill a certain price that inevitably could mean, wow, we could have paid somebody to be here for this shift as opposed to paying them. So you might have an idea at any given moment, because I know Pace has to respond to us.
Yep.
Occasionally. What do you think the average response time is from, and it depends on where they're coming from, because they could be coming from Norway, they could be coming from Greenwood or
You never know.
Woodstock or wherever.
Woodstock, yeah.
So I mean, you're talking, even if they're ready to go, that's 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would say 25, 30.
After the tone's gone out, and like Stacy said, when dispatch gets the call, takes all the information, you're already 4 to 5 minutes since they've called 911. So then the tones, another couple of minutes, and
Right.
then even if they're in the station, to get to the truck, go pee,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, so best case scenario, you're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you're on in Sumner. Because I mean, we do
Right, Hartford.
contractors, somebody does contract with us, so I mean,
Stacy was saying the average response time, I believe, that she said the average response time in the station is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So tone to stand up, do what you gotta do, get ready, get in the vehicle and leave.
Yeah.
Um. So,
And if you're talking about the other side where Turner has to come over, then you got 2 dispatch centers involved.
yeah, so you got Oxford communicating with Androscoggin, and then things, that's a whole other delay.
Yeah.
so my thoughts are we continue to research and continue to gather some numbers and some figures, so we have those pieces to really compare. And I, by majority, this town has invested a lot of money in that building, in that equipment, in developing the force that we have now. So we have all that. Some of it we're still paying for. So even if we rely on mutual aid or get to the point where we're being billed for things, we are still paying for what we have.
$72,000 a year,
Yep.
just that building.
And again, I know that there are people in town who are still unhappy about that, but whether you're unhappy about it or not, it's here, this is what we have. The town voted on it and,
Choose it.
yeah, let's use it.
Yeah.
So that's, thoughts on that. Look at what the ideal scenario would be and what would that cost, and then
Yep.
walk it back from there.
I understand. We don't need to be at the top of the pay scale. We're never gonna match the paces of the Uniteds. It's not possible. However, we also have to take into consideration, what does Pace offer for benefits to full-time employees?
Everything. Yeah,
Health, dental,
yeah,
vision, life
yeah,
insurance.
time off, all that. It's expensive.
Do they offer any educational reimbursement?
Yeah, they do. And there's grants too, through the hospital you can get for education.
So I mean, we don't have those added costs. We don't, for that department anyways. I mean, our full-time employees here and that public works is different, but we don't have that overhead of that some of these other services do. And if we ever had to rely on an outside service to do that, that's all built into the cost of the service. And if you want a truck in our town, that's gonna cost you more. And I don't think there's any service out there right now that can put a truck in our town. And I don't think we could afford it.
No,
But it's not going to come to that, so.
no,
These are things that people need to think of when they're looking at this.
right, and they need to consider that, folks that do pay for their service, if you're borrowing that service, it's not really fair to those folks,
Right.
right? So you got taxpayers out there paying for a service that's coming to your town. That's how you end up getting billed.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair to them, right? It's
That's why what we have with Turner right now works, because they cover us, we cover them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a Medicon, we don't, we have a Medicon, they don't, so.
it's true.
That's the way it should be. That's the way mutual aid should.
And that goes back to the fire thing too,
Yeah.
One could say legally, do we have to have a fire department? Well, no, we need to have a fire chief.
Right.
But what good is our fire chief to a neighboring town if that fire chief has no equipment and no people to offer those other towns? That's when you get billed.
Yeah.
And that does not talking about your insurance rates,
Oh,
your ISO,
oh, yes.
What Adam and those guys and girls do in that building, ladies in that building do, really has an impact on like what we pay for insurance on our property. Which I'm sure you probably pay a lot of money for insurance on your property because you have multiple properties, but it's, it's for older family or for people on fixed incomes. That's a lot of money.
So let's prevent that from happening.
Yes.
Absolutely. Off the top of your head, some of the equipment that you.
I was gonna say, I remember seeing a document with all most of the equipment laid out and what we
Yeah,
were.
so I have like on the fly capital improvement plan for things that I know need to be looked at or anticipated. Public Works, for example, next year, our 2 trucks that we bought back in 1920. So this will be the last year we have to raise and appropriate for those 2 payments. Those trucks will be paid off. So that's good. Our backup truck. So as we buy trucks, the newer ones move ahead of older ones and older ones become the backups. Our GMs, which we have had used the backup quite a bit. Our GMC's been here for a long time and it needs to be replaced. Doesn't need to be replaced this year, but it's something that needs to be looked at. One of our trucks, the bed body does need to be replaced, and that I will pose that in this budget because it's a safety issue, it's an operational issue too, so that's gonna need to be taken care of. Fire, we're good at the moment. The engine and the tanker are 20 years old. So it's getting up there in age anyways. So in the next 5 to 8 years, we may need a refurb. Paying for refurb when it comes up isn't gonna get any cheaper. So anticipating that cost and putting money aside, which I think we currently do in the reserve account for fire. Between the 2 of them, we've got in the ballpark of $70,000-$80,000. So we do have a cushion to go towards that, which is good. But doesn't mean we should stop. The rescue, that ambulance that's currently getting body work done, that was supposed to be a short-term solution to a long-term issue, which is the supply chain and getting equipment remounted. So the plan for that truck originally was to remount the box onto a new chassis. Order the chassis, we're 18 months.
At least now, yeah.
So the plan was to order the chassis, pay for the chassis, have it come in, and then when it came in, we were gonna take the body off 451 and remount it onto that ambulance, which was gonna be another year or so, if not 18 months. So that's a 3-year project. It's gone a year beyond when that plan was because of everything that happened at rescue. So we need to start thinking about that. There's between the two reserve accounts, which a couple years ago there was a hiccup, money got put into the equipment reserve, which was intended for an ambulance because the warrant article was written hanky, but it was discussed in a public hearing. Everybody knew it was. That there's between those two, there's about 100,000. So the chassis, we have enough to order the chassis, but we still need to save to pay for the remount so that we don't have to borrow.
Is that still the best plan? So that was the best plan 3 years ago. Is that still the best plan, that piece of equipment?
Well, for one, that I think that body's good.
Yeah. Sure.
It would, and then if we remounted it, it would be good for another 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
So I can't remember what Chip used to say. You could remount twice.
Twice.
Is
Yeah.
typically what we do, or what the plan is. But so that truck is a 20. The chassis itself is a 2012. So the body, when it goes in for remount, they'll do any of the body work or whatever that you need done. The inside is fine. Remount that, good for another 8-ish years. So realistically, if done right and not crap, a body could last you 25 years.
Yep.
I think that's the most cost-effective method for the town. I don't think it's smart to go pay almost $400,000 for a brand new ambulance. I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still gonna cost us probably 200 to
2+. Yep.
200 to 220 to do the whole remount, but that's a lot less than 400 plus.
Yeah.
And then you essentially got a brand new ambulance. You got boxes used, but
All right. They drive well. It takes the bumps out of it. So, yeah.
so I still think that's the best plan for that. We do have a set amount of money put aside already because of the transfers, the accident with the ambulance not being able to do transfers even if we wanted to. I'm anticipating there's not going to be a surplus of revenue from rescue, so we're not going to have that option to take that extra or additional revenue and put that into that account. The roof here, that's going to be a this year thing. I got a budget for it. The roof's leaking. I don't know what to say. Like it's that, or we work under umbrellas. I wanted to start working on slowly taking care of some of these windows, but it starts with the top, and the roof's got to be done first.
We've got some grants in the wind there too with the.
Yeah. I'm hopefully trying to get one to cover that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What about the transfer station?
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah, they need a bucket loader, right?
The backhoe that's over there is tired. Weldon let me know it tired last year, and we put a lot of money into it this year just to keep it running. And it needs to be replaced. He priced out some loaders, which I mean, this is something that has to be discussed with Sumner as well. But he had priced out some loaders. I'm nervous about putting a loader over there. I really think they need a backhoe. I mean, they shouldn't be pulling full cans with it. But if they have a loader, they don't have the same ability they do to push those bins down like we do now. And I get nervous with people coming in and out of there with them running a loader in that vicinity. I trust Weldon to do it, but I just. So.
Somebody that doesn't have that level of experience.
Right. And it's like plowing in Auburn. I mean, you never know what people are going to do around you. And I think it's a safety risk waiting to happen. So I said to Weldon that I think we should look at probably a used backhoe that's newer, maybe a little bit bigger than what's over there to replace that. We just have to figure out how that's going to work. Is the town of Buckfield going to buy it? Because currently the transfer station pays $7,000 a year. So we pay 65% of that. So we tax ourselves and then we pay ourselves, and then Sumner pays 35% of that. But I mean, if we have to take out a loan for a new backhoe, we may have to reevaluate that rental price. And, is it one of those deals where when it's paid off, like, is it kind of like the dump leases it from the town until it's paid off and then it becomes the transfer stations, or do we just keep ownership of it and just keep charging? I don't know.
You and Weldon can figure that out, because that's why you two were paid the big bucks.
And we've been talking, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think what it's gonna come down to is the town of Buckfield's gonna have to get the financing to do whatever we decide to do. So because we're the ones doing the financing, and we're gonna have to own it. So it'll probably continue the way it is, and we will maintain the ownership until it's time for a new one, and then we'll do it all over again. But that's something that needs to be anticipated. I don't know, is it of anything else pressing at the moment over there? I haven't had any issues with, knock on wood, equipment. Other than that. What else? Paving, that's the elephant in the room that everybody hates. 2 years ago, we had a budget of 460,000. Last year, we went to 360 or 370. We got the projects done that we needed to, but with the stuff that needs to be done in town, I think the road committee hasn't met yet, but I think I set a cap because I heard one number that was just way too high. And I basically said, you can't go over what we were at 2 years ago. So they have to figure out what to do there. So that's probably, I'd anticipate 460 or 470 is what they're gonna recommend for paving. And that's just something I don't have control over. The paving's stupid.
Yeah, what's the cost per mile right now, do you think?
I don't even know the cost per mile.
I remember it was outrageous.
Well, if you do it to the spec, I mean, they said it's like $1 million a mile, but I mean, we went and reclaimed East Buckfield Road from the Buckfield Mall corner all the way to the cemetery there on the corner. That's about a mile and
Yeah, a little more.
1.2 miles. We did that for like 468. They did a good job on that.
They did, this is great, yeah.
It's not $1 million. So anticipate probably the way because it makes no sense to take taxpayer money and say, oh, we can do this for $150,000, grind the top, throw a coat on it, and 3 years from now it's all cracked up and looks like,
Yeah.
The right way is to reclaim the road and do it right.
Yeah.
If there's rocks that keep protruding, give Bolton the opportunity to dig those rocks out so that it'll be another 10 years before the rest of them work their way up. But I mean, at the cheapest end, I'd say 350,000, depending on the width of the road, because Bear Pond's narrower than East Buckfield Road, so it's a little cheaper to do that stretch, which is about the same length, if not more. 350. I mean, you can really only for 460, you probably only do a mile and a half max.
Yeah.
Depending on the road. Although if Fonts Road keeps washing out, that's how much will happen to that. So, I mean, as far as that goes, that's really all I have on my radar for items. I know we need some air. We do need a couple of air packs for fire. It's crazy to me. We only have 7 air packs for the entire town.
There's so much that goes into keeping that equipment. Because there's an expiration date on it, and then you have to have it checked, and it's just
monthly inspections.
oh
Bottles need to be hydro tested.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, this building alone, I could go all day long, but
Right.
there's no way we're coming up with the money to fix all the problems in 1 year. Or even 10 years.
No,
Or
but-
12.
Sometimes you can plan for a 5-year, 10-year. So it's not a big
I
hit.
spoke to a contractor about the ramp out back. I thought it was gonna be a whole tear down, but he looked at it and I'm hoping to get that fixed in the spring, as well as some of the loose boards that are out here. The building, it's been quite a few years since it's been painted, and the last time it was painted, it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't done that great. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't scraped, so now it's getting really bad. There's a lot of the fascia out back needs to be replaced. Obviously, I've talked about the windows upstairs in that one room alone. I think I counted 15 or 16 panes that are broken, so need to find a really good reglazer. Colleen said she can do it, but Colleen's got way too much stuff. Uh, so, I mean, and then at the end of the day, even if you reglaze them, the windows are still the windows, they're not very energy efficient. And there may be ways, like you said, having some sort of like weatherized or weighted curtains or whatever to kind of,
Right, closer, panels.
which I think Cindy had done at one point. There were curtains in there that were heavier, but they were just old and they're really gross, so we had to take them down. But
And I think that there are grant opportunities for many of these things. So going into this year, anything that we can see if we can recoup through a grant. It will just be that much more that we can then apply to the following year.
we have to be careful with some of those grants too, because a lot of the grants are very specific about they don't reimburse you. So if you're budgeting for something, you don't want to be too good at budgeting to the point where you go and fix it and then you apply for a grant. They're like, sorry, you already paid for it. There's nothing we can do.
Right.
So you have to really pay attention to those terms. And I hate to tax people on something that we would have qualified for in a grant.
Oh, certainly.
But the it's a touchy subject. The carpets in this building are we get rid of the main one. But have you walked into the town office and looked at the floor? I don't think you can carpet clean that at this point. And then there's certain areas of the carpet, I don't know what they did. Carpet nailed the carpet, so like you trip over spikes sitting out of the ground and or out of the floor. So I think priority at some point, since that's the part of the building that's used the most, is the floor in the town office. Whether we go with something like what we have out there that can wash or an industrial carpet that doesn't look like it belongs outside. That's got to be anticipated. If we're going to keep this building, we need to take care of it. I can get an estimate for repainting this room at one point, but then everything happened and it kind of fell to the wayside. I'd like to get that done at some point, since this is the room that the public comes to when we have meetings.
You don't like the chair rail?
So perhaps,
Wallpaper?
yeah, perhaps we could look at putting an amount in the budget that is building maintenance and plan on that being a part of the budget every year. And
Sort of what I
we
did.
use it as wisely and as frugally as we can, but we just keep moving forward and do as much as we can with that and any grants that we can get. And
That's sort of what I did last year. I increased the maintenance line in this building. I think I put 15,000 for this building. Last year, with all these things I anticipated on taking care of, and then we ran into a bunch of things, but the ramp will most likely come out of that. I don't think there'll be enough to do the roof. I'm anticipating to reseal that. It's probably gonna cost just under 10 grand, roughly, if I can find the right contractors willing to do it,
Yeah, roofs are expensive now.
that are insured, because I don't put it on the roof that's not insured.
thank you.
So, I mean, between for the roof sealer itself, miscellaneous supplies, which would include the renting a lift, because there's no easy way to get, 10 5-gallon pails of roof sealer up there. All you were gonna do. So, I mean, that, then labor, I mean, I just don't see, I think they paid 8 grand the last time they sealed that roof, and that was several years ago.
They're good cheaper.
I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
just-
pretty sure we have a piece of equipment that can. Thank you for maybe.
So with that said. We are a municipality and we have to be OSHA compliant, and you can't be climbing up a ladder truck holding 2 5-gallon pails of roof sealer with
Seeing that,
3 points of contact.
but that's too.
Which training?
Just hoisting it up. Yeah. Think outside the box, Cameron.
But I have been up that ladder. You are not carrying 5-gallon buckets of roof sealer.
But that's sinking, and that's why I looked at him, and that's why I was trying not to laugh. So that's.
I thought I was gonna say the shooting face.
Right.
But. Yeah. You know.
Fire set of stairs up to the roof would be really nice. Cause I don't think I could fit through the hole up at the top of the stairs to get up there. Not without freaking out.
You're right.
Yeah. You see that hole? No.
Good stuff.
So we'll bring elementary students over.
Yeah, yeah.
My 8-year-old.
Dave, Karen. Dave, Karen.
But yeah,
Was this at all helpful to you? Not helpful to you?
yeah, no, it's good to have a discussion. Like I said, I came to that meeting last year and I think what it all just came down to was flat if possible.
Right. Good, you did it.
Yeah.
And then some. Yeah.
And I think it's important that we be on the same page and.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I will do my best to come in where you're asking.
You're never gonna have flat forever, right?
But yeah, no,
You
there's
know,
no way.
The town needs to grow, the town needs to improve. So it's gonna increase. I think flat last year was born out of.
The year prior.
Right.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
just like, hold on,
Timeout. It was our timeout. But
take a breath.
we can't take a timeout forever. No, I appreciate it. I'm almost all the way through it. I haven't gotten to the revenues yet. I think we're pretty much all on the same page. The mowing. I talked to Weldon. We're gonna take that back this year. We're gonna have, it's a lot easier to control it and make sure that things are being taken care of. It's a lot for a one-man operation to do, and if we go to one of the big companies, it's way more money than what this town can afford to mow.
So will we hire somebody?
We'll most likely go back to we'll have seasonal staff that basically that will be their priority will be mowing cemeteries, mowing the rec field, weed whacking. I think that was the biggest issue we had last year, and nobody's fault. That was the worst summer ever. Because if it wasn't raining, you were mowing. And if by the time you finished mowing one thing, the grass had grown up so high and it started raining again, and it just, the weed whacking alone is insane at the cemetery. I mean, I did it for 3 hours one day and I went, I will never do this again. I don't know why anybody would want to do this. It's a lot of work, you know. People put a lot of stuff on the graves, you gotta move them.
Tell this publicly, we've got to try to sell this job to someone. You had so much fun. Exactly, so we're
Down my face.
coaching all those college students who come home for the summer to apply for this job.
Listen, I did my fair share of mowing, weed whacking and all those jobs that, you know, I wouldn't want to do now, but I'm just saying it's a lot.
I did it for some 3 or 4 cemeteries.
The cemeteries are rough.
It's a lot.
And then you have the ball fields. You know, it has to be mowed around the rec schedule and it has to be done before rec games. So it's a lot easier for me to call up one of my employees and say, hey, the rec field needs to be mowed today. And they go do it, as opposed to, hey, I need you to mow the ball fields. Well, I can't today. I had plenty of shit with dandelions. Yeah. So there's a lot to it, and Weldon felt it was best to take it back. With that, our old Gravely, it's a good backup, but it's not. We're gonna need to replace that one. So I'm figuring it's probably gonna cost 10 grand for a new zero turn, but I think it should be spread out amongst the departments that benefit from it. So it won't look that much to each department, but it'll be owned by the whole town, but each department should share in the cost of it. So like rec has a lot of fields. Obviously the cemetery is the biggest, And then, the old sheriff's library will have a small share of it, and then the municipal center. Um, So. That'll be proposed. Hopefully people will understand. Based on the phone calls I get when the mowing isn't how let people like it, I'm assuming they will support it. But. I think we'll be good.
So what is the goal date to have a finalized budget?
The first week of February is when I'm bringing it to the budget committee, so I have 15 days.
And then,
Sorry, the first full week, so I'm thinking the 5th of February.
Should we mark it back from the primaries? Isn't that the next election?
So my schedule fits, so if I bring it to the budget committee in February, they have the month of February to do what they need to do. By our first meeting in March, I'm gonna bring it to you, and then you'll have basically March, and then we get it. We have our public hearings, we get it all finalized in March, or March is gonna be busy. So
Yeah,
anticipate probably having to have a couple extra meetings in March.
yeah,
Sorry. But when we get that wrapped up and we know what our warrant is and we've got it ready, I can have the ballots ordered, because that takes a little bit of time. And we should be right on track. I'll dial it back for the first meeting in February we have, just so that we have an idea.
yeah.
well,
So, June.
this is why I'm asking. So if a citizen has thoughts, concerns, ideas, suggestions, is the best bet for them to go to a budget committee meeting and talk to people then? Is their best bet to come and talk directly to one of us, which of course everyone's always welcome to do, but what would be the most effective way for them to communicate their ideas or concerns
They should,
about this
they
budget?
should start at the budget committee meetings. And
Okay,
if they can't make the budget committee meetings, they should come to the meetings in March with you, because you're gonna be the final. This is what you're projecting. I mean, the budget committee's recommendations will be on the ballot. But. So is it yours, so there'll be, basically yeah, not a yes or no, but budget committee recommends this, select board recommends this. So I mean, either way they go, they'll have their opportunity to have input, but if they wait till after we've ordered ballots and, everything's printed.
earlier somebody comes and voices thoughts, ideas, suggestions, concerns. The more time and the more people available to listen and
Mhm.
integrate that
Mhm.
information into decision making.
Yeah, I'd say the first budget meeting in February, which I need to figure out, put it on the calendar. Hold on. Peter asked me about it the other day.
And can we make sure that those budget meetings are on Zoom?
Yeah, I plan on being a madam, so.
Thank you. I just want to give everybody ample opportunity to
Yeah.
voice their
Yeah.
suggestions and concerns.
Bob, you having deja vu? I didn't go to one yet. I'm gonna double check with Peter, but actually. Judy. It's okay if you can't unmute. You can nod your head yes or no. Did we agree on the 5th of February for that budget meeting? She's
Yes.
shaking her head yes, so
Okay.
I believe it's Monday the 5th.
I'll be on the calendar.
So that would be the first up. Here's the kicker. I do believe they intend on having those meetings at like noon for the budget committee. So not everybody's gonna be able to attend those. So their opportunity may be in March when it comes to the select board.
But we would want people
Any,
with ideas, suggestions, or concerns to maybe not wait until March.
right,
Do all the budget committee meetings have to be at noon?
Well, I think it's dictated by their membership and the committee members. Noon's easier for them,
Oh, I
especially
understand.
driving in the winter. So. They could, if they have concerns and they can't attend meetings, they could forward that information on to any of you or myself, and then I could pass it on to Peter.
Or they could make a time to meet with one of the members of the budget committee.
Right.
Okay. So as we come up on that, we could put the information out there if you have thoughts, ideas, concerns. Here are your opportunities, these meetings or these people, and so really get that information out there.
And I think the ideal plan here again is last year we did well for the select board side of things. We scheduled that public hearing before you vote on the warrant.
Yeah.
Because I know for 2 years, they voted on the warrant that had the public hearings and everybody was wild that they didn't have any say or couldn't. So.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think that's key is to schedule the public hearing before. We say, okay, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it's not our budget, it's the town's budget, it's the budget of the community members, so.
Yeah.
Well, once I give my budget to the budget committee and the budget committee goes through it and it goes to you, it's not my budget anymore. I'm just kidding. It's our budget. It's the whole town.
Thank you so much, Cameron.
Yes, thank you. All right, we all set? Move into selectmen's meeting?
You want to take a 2 minute
If we
break?
take a 2-minute break.
Yeah, we'll take a brief recess
Thank
and
you.
we'll come back in a few minutes and have our selectmen's meeting. All right.
I'll be brief on the recess. Oh. Yes.
What's that?
Viv isn't.
No, she didn't make it.
She's in here tonight.
We'll have to get her Zoom in. Yeah.
Oh, she's not ready for that yet.
Yeah, we have, go slow on that.
Bob?
Yes, how you doing, Judy?
Okay, I would just like to introduce my daughter, Liz Berg. She is a taxpayer in Buckfield. If not a citizen, not now.
All right.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. I'm
Hi,
looking at
nice to meet you.
This meeting's over here, so.
Wait.
Just me.
Still snowing.
Oh, it's so. Yeah.
Somebody keep feeding there.
Great, we're all set?
Whatever you are.
All right, we'll call this meeting of the Buckfield Select Board to order for January 16, 2024 at 6:37 PM. You have a quorum here. Grant management and municipal use policy review.
Woo.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I think I printed off the most current one.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you. And a couple of things that Cam mentioned in the Google Doc was that the authority thing, you can just cross that out. This is an ordinance, this is policy, might be. And then under, well, I mean, first, I guess, let's talk about the grant policy, since that was first. Did anyone have any feedback, ideas, questions, anything?
Absolutely.
Is your idea that this is a finished product or?
Not necessarily, just
Is it
maybe a
working
direction to head in. I guess it's just up to everyone here. So if it seemed like a finished document to you guys, then I'd feel happy with using it. I feel like it's been fleshed out.
I had,
To page 7, sticky notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's not a finalized.
this is work notes.
Yeah, those are just to reference. That was something I noticed, or Viv and I noticed in our former personnel policies and procedures handbook that I wasn't able to update the current version. I just didn't have it on me and it wasn't up on the town website yet, but the former one, and I don't think we made any changes to this. So if we
Right.
if we made this policy, if we enacted this policy, we'd need to go back and address that. Basically, it's saying that the town manager is authorized to apply for grant opportunities, but it doesn't mention anyone else being authorized to do that. So I think that to keep it that way would be a mistake. I think that there are a lot of citizens in the town that have grant writing experience and perhaps would be willing to lend a hand to the town. And if we can encourage them to do that as independently as they can, then I think we should do so. So yeah, we would definitely want to address that if we decide that the document I've drafted looks like a better policy than the one we have already.
We could see the town manager being the authorized signature to sign on the application. But yeah, I agree with Zeddy on that one.
Yeah, and I of course think everything should ultimately go through the town manager, the office of the town manager. But yeah, I don't think that we should keep him as the only one who should be applying for grants.
And also here, the select board shall retain sole authority to accept such grants that perhaps. And the dollar figures could be the same as expenditures. A grant for $200.
And we have,
Perhaps the town manager has the authority to accept grants up to a certain number and.
and we have, I mean, like this year, we have 2 warrant articles specific, or no, maybe it is just the one that was for the select board. I can't remember, well, 640 something I will. But to what Sandra just said, like section under approval of grant submission. Grant cycle, per the town of Buckfield purchasing policy, any grant application under 4,000 blah, 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 may be approved by the town manager. In addition, the town manager's approval. On the grant application, $5,000 or more and or that requires matching fund must be approved by the select board. So I'm gonna use this as an example because it's on our agenda for later tonight.
Please.
The fire department grant, the volunteer fire grant that we apply to every year. So we'll talk in depth more about it later, but the award that I'm gonna ask you to accept is for $2,516.50 in grant funds to be used in an equal share of local funds to purchase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different items in different quantities. On a normal, so like on a normal budgeting aspect, I would have the authority to allow these expenses. But the way this is written, we couldn't authorize them until you accepted it.
Okay,
but you would accept it anyway, so I guess I confused myself there.
how would you suggest we write that? Rework that?
Is the amount right now that you are authorized to expend is $4,999.
There's certain policies we have in place, like if it's gonna be over a certain amount of money, I have to. At least call around and get 3 different prices, if possible. If it's an emergency, I can can waive that, or, just quick little conversations, but I have to notate it. But like, I mean, this valve, that's $1,556. Adam would say, hey, I need this valve. Without the grant money, I'd say, okay, I get it, it's in your budget.
Right.
But because we're receiving half the money, I have to go to the select board to get approval.
So I would say the amount that you should be able to authorize should be the same amount that you now are able to expend without bringing it to the select board. And I believe it's the $5,000.
Right.
Just the way it's written, it says it requires.
I just think we might need to rework the,
Right, and so that would be matching funds, so the total couldn't exceed $4,999.
right, because the 5,000 would trigger me up to come to you anyways.
So the request plus matching funds could not total more than $4,999 for you to be able
Well,
to do that.
essentially it would
If it's
be-
above that.
If it's a 50% match, the most I could approve. Yeah. Because we're still purchasing, even though it's grant funds,
Right,
would be $2,500 roughly. If it was a 50% match and the total purchase was gonna be. So it would be $2,499.99.
right. So.
The grant.
For the grant and then the
Amount.
two, right. So total amount, because grant matching may not always be 50-50, but whatever it is between the grant and the matching amount cannot. If
So
the
much,
grant and the matching amount is above $4,999, then you
so,
must bring it to the select board.
and/or that requires matching funds. In excess of. This amount. Combined, so it would be grant funds plus your match. You just have to find a way, it doesn't sound like me being a moment.
That's okay, we can wordsmith, but I'll note that
I'll see if I can.
we need to rework that.
And this is I can make comments on this document, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like, well, obviously this wasn't in place when this application was submitted.
Yeah.
So like I knew about it, so it would have been in compliance anyways, as long as we agreed that.
Okay.
And then. Generate some reports, exercise gear, 40% per year. So on section, so page 3, section B, the paragraph after the bullet points, it is the grantee's responsibility. Are we talking about the grantee as in the town, or are we talking about the grantee as in the person who filed or applied for the grant?
We're talking about the grantee is in the town.
Okay, all right. And that's fine, because at first I thought it was the person who applied for the grant would be responsible to file for reimbursement, because I'm that person.
So they're the person who actually writes the grant, but they're writing the grant for the town.
Yeah, the grantee in this case, and I could add like a definitions thing too, but yes, grantee is the town and then applicant could be the individual if applicable, but.
Maybe at the beginning, like some of our policies, or bylaws and stuff, we could put, the town of Buckfield, and then in parentheses, put grantee here and after, or whatever.
Yeah.
Cause I'm not gonna be the only person that asks that question.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could hire somebody out of Ohio to write a grant for us.
Yes, correct.
So
They're
it's
just
nothing to
grant
do with them, they're just doing the.
That's right, noted.
Other than that, I don't see.
Cool. So I will work on reworking those, and if anyone else like reads it again and finds anything else, you can feel free to just shoot me a quick email and get it banged out before next time we go over this.
This looks fantastic, Azalea, thank you.
Of course, yeah. And then moving on to the municipal land use policy, some notes that Cam made. Again, the authority only for ordinances, might be. One thing was I would need to rework, the wording on weapons being prohibited. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing, at things like, perhaps rec fields, but we apparently own a property, off the railroad bed towards South Pond that people hunt on, and I wouldn't want to prohibit them from continuing to be able to do that. So that I will definitely be reworking.
I think in some instances, if we change the verbiage to open only firearm. And like I said, we can have a section in here for rec, because I don't think a softball game or a baseball game is a place to have,
Agreed.
However,
but that's fine.
weapons in your truck.
Well, and that's. I don't, and I think I kind of said it in there, and I'll be open about it. I'm not a huge fan of gun-free zones. But I think open carrying of weapons is understandable, like that's not allowed.
Mhm.
In a recreational,
Yeah,
And, we have people who hunt and then go to a softball game or whatever. If they're on our property, I'm not gonna, go after them because they have a hunting rifle in the back of their vehicle.
right, they just shouldn't have it across their lap in the stance.
yeah, right.
And that would just be in cemeteries and recreational
Mhm.
areas.
I don't know if it should be just in the back of somebody's truck out in the open either, though,
People have gun racks still.
for activity to grab. And just want,
Mhm.
I've been telling people to lock their cars. I mean,
like, if it's blocking,
I support responsible gun ownership. Like,
yeah,
most hunters are gonna be responsible about it. They're not gonna leave a firearm with ammunition in their vehicle and not lock their doors. I'm just saying it's, you go down that rabbit hole and there are people that would be upset if we said.
I think open
Either-
carry
either
are the right words.
Yeah, I don't think open carrying of anything is, and most people would either, they wouldn't, I don't know that many people with gun racks anymore, but they do exist.
Yeah.
General public rules for municipal land use, I know that, so this is more focused towards like if somebody wanted to actually like run a space or utilize a field or something like.
Yeah, I tried to put just like the general public stuff, anything that like residents will want to know, just right on that first page, and then everything below that is pretty much if someone wanted to use our space, for an event they're hosting, a program they want to lead, something like that.
I think we could probably put a bullet point in here about ATV use authorized on designated trails.
Okay.
We did have issues with ATVs on the rec field, so
Would it be the same for snowmobiles? Like you shouldn't be riding a snowmobile?
ATVs and snowmobiles on
Mhm. Be the
designated
same.
trails.
Yeah.
And then you could put railroad bed or ITS 89 or.
Right.
what's kind
That
of
was,
the
it
issue?
was, what was that? Yeah, well. And here's the kicker, when you have state troopers parked in front of the fire station, there's ATVs going both ways and they don't do anything about it. It's a state road, so.
Mhm.
I know they've had discussions in Hartford and Sumner about the local roads, making local roads ATV access. I hear the argument, like if you live in North Buckfield and you want to get to the railroad bed, the only way you can get down there is to put it on a trailer, drive it down to the park and ride, or not the park and ride though. Yeah, in front of the town garage.
Mhm.
As long as people. It's really a law enforcement issue. Nothing we can do about it. I do take issue when people drive ATVs down our dirt roads that we maintain and grade and tear them up. Then it becomes an us issue because there's a lot of money involved in that. But
Household pets are permitted on all municipal land, maybe something in there about, well, under direct supervision and control.
Yeah, good idea.
What is the,
Leashed or
Well,
under direct
it's-
control.
That's state law anyway, right? They have to be under your.
Well, you're the animal control officer. But yes, you are correct.
Okay.
Um. So this part could be confusing with that ATV aspect of it, where it says no off-road motorized vehicles of any kind, with the exception of shuttle vehicles permitted for land use. So that's where I think where I came up with like the designated trail aspect of it, because technically the roadbed's a parcel that we own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't feed the ducks. Turkeys are in town. And then just the fees and deposits, the application that you currently have would need to be revised.
Okay.
Um. We probably need to be updated anyways, because I mean, that application is pretty much specific to like this building. And some of the other, it's like, it doesn't. There's nothing on there for the rec field. Like I allowed a birthday down at the rec field because it's a park, and I said if it's not interfering with anybody else, have at it. But we didn't have any, that wasn't on the application. But if, I mean, if somebody's gonna like tie up the pavilion and a section of the rec field, I guess it would make sense to charge for that and make sure that they're cleaning it up.
um. So if somebody wanted to. Rent, but. Use. Say. A field to have a wedding and they have. It catered. And the people have a license to serve alcohol, can they do that? Should they be allowed to do that?
I mean, the town of Turner does it with Boofy Quimby.
Mhm.
They have to have their own insurance.
So that's where I'm
So you
saying,
have
where
this-
it says here that alcohol is not allowed anywhere. Um,
So we'd have to put something there unless authorized.
or,
You know, like if the bucket was a caterer and they were handling the alcohol, their insurance would cover any issues with that.
Yeah.
So we just have to have proof of their insurance before that they could do that.
right,
Um.
we just need to figure out how we're going to word that, but the idea being.
Yeah.
You can't crack a beer at the rec field, right?
And then I could probably. Get a hold of the Boofy Quimby paperwork too and
Right.
see how theirs is worded. I know I've seen it before. Yeah.
Okay.
And they've got all the guidelines on what, like if you have because they do allow bring your own booze events there, but you have to pay for specific insurance and the town has to be insured, so. Which in that case, it would cover damages to the property. If we're talking about a field, I guess you could still damage the property, among other things. But.
So maybe let's look into that.
Okay, let me reach out to, or try to find it online or reach out to the town of Turner and see if I can get my hands on it.
I wish we had a facility like Boofy Quimby, it would be really nice, because it could be a moneymaker.
Someday,
Well, we had one, it's not there no more. But then we didn't have any parking either, so.
Yeah, it'd be nice if like the church had a bathroom or.
Well, I mean, then they said, oh, did you guys, they had weddings, they had a couple weddings up there, didn't they? Or parties or
At the
events.
church.
Yeah,
There was a wedding.
Mhm.
and that's, we were talking at a budget meeting about things that need to be looked at, like at a minimum right now. The window that's in front of the steeple needs to be repaired.
Mhm.
Even if it's temporary, something needs to be put up because it's wide open right now.
Um. Can I go back to here?
Of course.
Yes. Devil's advocate. So I come in June and say, I want to have a soccer party and have a bunch of kids and use the soccer field and play some soccer games, and we reserve the day. And then rec comes along and things get all askew and rec needs to reschedule some soccer games. Does rec have to say, oh, sorry, we can't do a game because soccer's having a soccer party?
I think the one I had done a quick little overview originally, and it had said that town events take precedent.
It says the town event's taking priority, but once I've booked it, can the town bump me? And not that we have to answer it right now, and not that that'll ever come up, but if it does, what's the policy say?
As someone on, I mean, I've never tried to schedule a soccer game with anybody, so I don't know anything about that. So what do you think, Cam?
Sports scheduling sucks.
Yeah, right.
And usually if a game is canceled, there's no other opportunity to play it. So I think there should be some clause in there or whatever that town sponsored events
May
may
preempt.
preempt cancellation, or I mean, we'd have to give them usually the schedule will come out and we'll know a month in
Right.
advance. So, I mean, we should be fair and say that they'll be given, if something comes up, which if it's a wedding, that would really suck. But we gotta find something that is a little clearer.
And I mean, theoretically, we could, propose an alternative location to
Right.
a recreational field that needs to be used for, a town.
But during play season, we cannot guarantee availability of a recreational field.
Yeah.
If they want to have a birthday party under the thing there, they can still do that while a game's going on.
Mhm.
It might be a little crowded, but it'll be all right.
Right.
I don't think we'll have a ton of issues with this thing.
Yeah, I think so either, but once we make this an ordinance, get through.
Mhm. That's another thing is this, we do already have an existing municipal building policy. That I have not married those two together. So if we wanted to make it an ordinance, I think that we could probably roll the two into just one. So that could be something that's working on.
Well, it's my understanding that unless it's an ordinance,
Mhm.
we're going to have a tough time.
With law enforcement.
Right,
Mhm.
enforcement will be more challenging.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it'd be a great idea to,
Just do that.
there's the
preemptively.
policy in place.
Mhm.
And then change the wording that we need to and propose it as an ordinance.
Yeah.
And even with ordinances, we'd have to, if my understanding is correct, we'd have to contract with Oxford County to enforce those. So they'd probably add a fee to be able to, but that's a whole other thing to explore after we get that far.
Mhm.
But in the interim, it's good to have a policy for land use in addition to the municipal, what was it? Building
Yeah.
use, because it didn't address some of these issues that we've had, such as camping along the river and drugs. At least with a policy, if it's in place, law enforcement can't enforce the policy, but should say someone is trespassing because they're violating the rules, then they can do something about it, right? I'll start.
Yeah, that's a great start. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to help.
Ready to move on? Yeah. We can always send emails your way.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
If you go on to that document, Michelle, I think it's on Google Docs, you can actually add comments and stuff
Yeah,
too.
in the last couple emails, I should have linked to it right in the text. You can click on it.
Yeah,
You
you
can
did.
leave
and I
comments
saw the
right on
comments and
specific.
stuff, and
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
Perfect. All right, new business, the consent agenda.
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Will second that motion?
Thank you. And discussion?
Accounts payable warrant 68 has its own opinion in it.
Okay.
Good.
And the total on that's $238,445.61. All those in favor? Bob, aye.
Azalea, aye.
Heather,
Peter, aye.
Sandra, aye.
Thank you. December 2023 fire and rescue reports. Been busy.
All right, so I know that last meeting, I said I didn't have the fire report. I actually received it at 4 o'clock that afternoon, opened it up and never printed it out. So I did have it for last meeting. They had 41 calls. The vast majority of those were from the storm damage and response. The new ladder truck we talked about is in service. There's been 2 trainings for staff, one from Greenwood, which is the company that refurbished it, and another from a contractor. Staff still need to show competency with ladder operations and driving before being signed off on it. Total calls for 2023 was 204. This did not include trainings, meetings, and outside details. Brogan Hutchinson successfully completed basic fire school. Abby Wood completed firefighter 2 and is currently awaiting her pro board test. We currently have 4 per diem employees that cover the Monday through Friday shifts to provide fire protection, as well as assist rescue when needed. All 4 of them are dual firefighter and licensed EMTs or AMTs. They look forward to working with rescue in 2024 as their unification has become stronger since Chief Blackyear has come on board. And they'd like to thank the residents and taxpayers of Buckfield and Hartford for their continued support of staff and shipment. The rescue monthly report, overall call volume for December, 24 calls in Buckfield, 4 in Hartford, 5 in Sumner, 2 in Turner, 1 in Canton, which was rescue and fire personnel assisted with the evacuation of the old villa. I can't remember what pavilion. So I think it's called the pavilion. Or anyways, the
Pinnacle.
there you go. Because they had flooding issues. So we helped them evacuate that, and we had 1 call to Paris. We had 28 BLS calls, 7 ALS, and 2 fire standbys. We provided 2 mutual aids to Turner, 1 to Pace and 1 to Medcare, and we received 2 from Turner and 1 from Pace. So as you can see, mutual aid.
Bring it up.
Busiest day for December was Saturdays. We had 9. I'll go through the list. Mondays we received 5 calls. Tuesdays we received 6. Wednesdays 7. Thursdays 1. So it's our slow day, at least that month. Fridays 5. Saturday 9, and Sundays 4. Stacy said we were notified that Rescue 451 sustained approximately $12,000 in damages. I covered that in the previous meeting. The insurance adjuster has given Ripley and Fletcher the go ahead to start the repairs. They did identify some additional damage, and we're waiting on the adjuster to give them authorization to fix that damage that they have found. At this time, we don't have an estimated completion date. However, it's in progress, and we will keep you updated as we know what is going on.
Yeah, and they've done an excellent job over there, especially considering their actions during the storm. That was
Yep.
really something.
You know, we said we don't, because we only have 1 ambulance, we can't do transfers. However, if somebody in town needs a transfer, we're still doing that because we're providing a service to our taxpayers. And I think we did one the other day. It was just to go wait and come back, but they didn't get the late because we happened to get a call 5 minutes before to do it. So fortunately, the hospital worked with rescue and we were able to get them over to their appointment that they needed. Everything was all taken care of. But so our residents, Sumner, we're all good. We'll take care of you.
Thank you. 2023 volunteer fire assist, oh, no, I'm sorry. Approve the minutes of the January 2nd, 2023 select board meeting. Any have a chance to look at those?
I will make a motion that we approve the January 2nd, 2024 select board meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? I didn't see anything in there. No, all right. All those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, I.
Heather, I.
Peter, aye.
Sandra, I.
Thank you. Now, 2023 volunteer fire assistance grant award.
So this is the grant that I had mentioned earlier. We typically, fire department applies for this every year. This year, we got the award letter for $2,516.50 in grant funds. To be used with an equal share of local funds to purchase following items. There's 4 hose, 2 cases of True Fuel, 10 5-gallon buckets of Class A foam, I think is what it is. And then 2 valves and a Y. So obviously, out of the fire department budget, that same amount of money would come to buy all the items listed. I just need the select board approval to accept this. And then I will get the paperwork submitted accordingly. There are clauses to this, like any other grant, like fire department's gonna maintain equipment that they purchase with it. Well, some of this is wear items or for consumables like True Fuel and Class A foam. Hose has a life cycle. Like we wouldn't just buy the valve and give it away or whatever. And then there's a whole process for contacting them in case you needed to get rid of something and getting the authorization. But outside of that, there's no long-term issues that I would see the town getting in from accepting this grant like we have in years past.
Or I'll make a motion that we accept the $2,516.50 in grant funds to be used with an equal share of local funds to purchase the items listed in the grant request.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? No. All in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, I.
Heather,
Sandra, I.
Thank you. Committee resignations.
So this one, my apologies. Peter had a discussion with Earl back in September, August, and they had a meeting on September 13th, and they voted to recommend to the board to accept his verbal resignation. And then I forgot to bring it to you. So this is just a formality. Earl, as far as I was concerned, he's been done. He doesn't, I don't know if it's health related or whatever, but he just can't do it. So we're just looking for.
I will make a motion that we accept Earl Ingold's resignation from the budget committee.
All right, any further discussion on that? No. All right, all those in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, I.
Heather, I.
You're right.
Sandra, I.
All right, committee appointments, Ruby Sear. The Community Events Committee.
Second time's a charm.
Thanks, Heather.
The motion that we appoint Ruby Sear to the Community Events Committee for a term of 1 year.
Second that.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, Ruby.
Yes. All right, all in favor, Bob, aye.
Azalea, I.
Heather, I.
You're right.
Sandra, I.
All right,
Some just said that so loving.
emergency management update. Yeah.
So Viv messaged me before the meeting.
Yeah.
She didn't want to brave the mountain in the storm, so she's not here. I don't know if you just want to, we'll let her recap it at the next meeting, but I don't know if you want to talk about the meeting we had today. I thought it was good.
Yeah, we had a great meeting there. That last Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was pizza. Thank you. Yeah, lots of pizza. There was pizza for me on Saturday. Yeah.
I mean, I think the key takeaway was we kind of identified some of the areas that we should improve on. Mostly communication wise and communicating issues and down road closures. What we fixed, I think we got a good plan on how to handle that moving forward. And then Viv brought up, we're chipping away at the emergency management plan 15 minutes at a time at each meeting, just so that we can get it up to date, because if you've skimmed over it, some of that's pretty,
A little problematic.
Yeah,
like school districts that don't exist anymore.
Do Hartford and Sumner have a Viv?
Every town is supposed to have an emergency
What
management
do they?
director. Something like the animal control officer, like somebody's gotta step up. So
It's the difference between somebody holding that title and someone
Instead of
actively and along those lines. I think the work that Viv has done is phenomenal.
Right.
And that we are so fortunate as a town that there is somebody willing to put that amount of work into making sure we are prepared for the unknown.
Absolutely.
I was wondering if once she gets past the storm stuff and is a little more steady, if she could connect with the Hartford and Sumner people, because she seems to know a lot, and make sure that they have a plan.
Yeah, because I'm their plans are probably, and I can't speak for them, I haven't looked at them, but their plans may be outdated too, you know. Their EMA may be their road commissioner or the select board member that, you know, doesn't really know what they bit off. It's in a sense of, it's not an issue until something happens. And I mean, Sandra saw it, just the reporting on the storm, I mean, it's stupid. It is, there's so much time, data collection, compiling, and then having to meet the deadlines in what, 4 days? Is that what we had? So,
And then you had to report information that you didn't know you needed to collect during the time of the emergency, and so
it really, it's,
now we know.
well, and for towns that don't really, I mean, they have that title, but they don't have a plan. You know, if they're not participating in Oxford County EMA's hazard mitigation plan and they're not submitting mitigation efforts, then they're not eligible for grants. And so, I mean, you know, that's to the detriment of the town, because now they're having to pay for things as they happen with no way to. So I think long term, I mean, already just what it's done, it's been great.
I think once we get our ducks in a row,
It's gonna be a lot easier on her too.
that people may, that she, I guess it would be up to her, but
Right.
yeah, I think that she may be available to answer questions.
You know, I think that what she's done for us already is so huge, and if she wanted to expand and help out our neighboring towns, like, obviously, we'd love that, but if she feels like
But
she
she's
wants,
our Viv.
right? But if she just wants to, you know, do what she promised us and get us in compliance, then that's okay too, you know?
She did say that April was a little generous on the estimate, because I don't think she understood the wealth of stuff that needs to be done.
It was April 2026.
She only said April, you are correct. She didn't give a year, but I think she's gonna do what she says. It just might take a little more time, just because it's been a while since somebody's actually been that actively involved in making sure that wasn't just a box to check off. And that's really what we need, especially with the increased amount of, you know, just the washouts, the rainstorms. I mean, those are bad enough, let alone if we ever had a hurricane or something.
Or a
worse.
bridge washout, you know, yeah.
You could just give up on through and say it's.
We're gonna build you a pontoon.
Yeah. Nature has reclaimed Ponce Road.
Berries that like would grow.
Gonna be in the little minor cart. You have to park them.
Have a vehicle on each side.
Oh, man, that's fun. So I'll let Viv recap this at the next meeting, but
Yeah.
I just thought it was good to say that, hey, we were all there, it was a good meeting, and
Or if there's anybody out there who would like to become more involved in the emergency. What's the
Planning
official title?
management.
Preparedness,
Emergency, yes, unofficial committee,
yeah,
Come party.
team.
Yeah.
Team, reach out. And we can do as little or as much as. you want.
Mhm.
And Deidre Newton has helped quite a bit too. I'm sure she doesn't want props. Thank you.
Okay, other business. Do you have any other business? Yes.
I'm thinking it might serve us well to set a schedule or a date or a time where we report out on our committee assignments and then perhaps work on what directives to give to those committees, best serves town.
It's actually funny you brought that up too. I sent out some emails to like the planning board, community events. One of the things that we as the town have struggled with over the last few years is maintaining records as far as minutes go. Like, you know, if we have all our select board meeting minutes, but there's other important minutes too, and we have the retention schedule that it's supposed to have. So like, they don't have to be extravagant, but we need to, if they make a motion, they vote, we need, that stuff needs to be recorded and it needs to be submitted to the town office. So I've reached out to some of the committees about it to make sure to try and pull in some records from previous years that I can't find or I don't have because it wasn't submitted. And get back on track of maintaining those records.
So that's perhaps something we could do as we.
Yeah. The planning board's critical because if you're voting on subdivision, those minutes become part of the record for that subdivision. And 30 years from now, when the next planning board has to see or give them something new, they have to go back and see what was approved and what was waived or whatever. So
Okay, so that's me, so I'll
social services committee, they only meet once a year, but obviously their votes for who they designate those funds to, because we're expending those funds, what their recommendation is, that's important. Rec, we're getting better at that. There's more people, so there's more hands less work. And I'm usually at those, so I try to record them so that I can go back and do it if I need to, but Aaron's been pretty good at doing them. So we're getting there. Old church, who's got that?
That's me.
That's not me.
I really love it if they have a meeting.
We are going to have a meeting. I have received two. I'm just waiting on one person's availability, but since we have two, we can move ahead, right? Two constitutes the quorum if there's only three.
There's only three, so they can,
Okay.
good.
Wonderful.
Just to kind of start the discussion about what's the plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
We'll
my,
schedule a meeting before next select board meeting, so I can get that time.
So when? Should we keep this up as far as? Report back or
Mhm.
what would best serve
Yeah.
we got,
the process?
so the budget stuff is gonna consume your life in March, so. My recommendation to all you would be probably the second meeting in February. Or is that too soon?
The 20th of February. Sounds okay for me.
Not too soon.
And by then, I think the road committee is gonna meet too, Bob, so.
Yeah.
We just need to communicate with these folks and.
The problem with the road committee is I think there's only one member that actually has an email address, so you can actually talk to them on the phone.
No, I'm just putting it on the agenda for that day.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Good call. Any other business? No. All right, public comment period. Everybody's interested in public comment?
Oh, Judy lost a friend. She had the dog a minute ago.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, I'll say something. I'm really interested that Azalea is going to work with the old church on the Hill Committee. Because I think we lost a very good opportunity last year because we weren't organized. And I'd hate to lose another one. The old church is not in great shape, but it's in better shape than we originally thought. And if we can get some volunteer help, maybe even have a fundraiser for it. I think we could, extend its life considerably. And you were talking about it raising money. It used to pay for itself. It had a number of weddings there each year. It was solvent. So I think, and it really is the emblem of the town. Thank you.
The dog's back.
Yeah. And to her point, there's this, the more significant stuff, which isn't as significant as we originally thought, but there's some of the smaller things that once the committee meets, maybe we can work out a plan on how to take care of the little things like the window
Mhm.
or,
Where they become big things.
right, because like that window on the steeple, for example, it started out small and it's now turned into something much bigger.
Yeah.
Which is gonna cost more money to
Gotta take
fix.
care of that for sure.
I don't want water getting inside, and which it's kind of hard not to at this point.
Mhm.
I was gonna go over there and put some plastic up behind it just to kind of, but I just haven't had the chance to get up there. And now it's all snowed in, so I better wear my boots.
Yes, Judy?
I just, one more comment on the church, the old church. It is somewhat, there are other churches of similar period and appearance, but it has its old windows, which apparently are very memorable and valuable. And other churches have all had them replaced. So if we could preserve ours, it would be nice.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Well, I have part of that window frame in the break room of this building, so I think it might need some tender love to. It could be salvaged, I'm not sure. Some reglazing. I'm not sure, I'm not a woodworker. You can barely nail two by four together.
All right. Do we need executive session tonight?
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything. All right. Then I'll make a motion that we adjourn
I will second that.
7:26.
at 7:26. All those in favor, bye-bye.
Azalea, I. Heather, I.
Peter, right?
Sandra, I.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Judy.
Is there anybody else out there?
stay warm,
Is there anybody else watching?
just Brittany.
Thank you, Brittany.